it gives me great pleasure to hand over to Javeria, who is the current chair of INSSA, to welcome you and to get this webinar properly started. Over to you, Javeria.
Thanks very much, Lisa. And yes, of course, to everybody who's joining us today, a warm welcome from GISF and INSSA. So if you're here today in this space, you're either a humanitarian security professional who's looking to learn more about professionalization of security risk management, or you're a human resources professional and you're looking for opportunities for your teams and your staff for professionalization of SRM. Or you could either be carrying or holding any other role, but you're just interested in this topic. So we welcome you and we're very glad to have you here today. What are we going to do today? Well, we're going to go ahead and explore the journey of security risk management professionalization in the humanitarian sector. And we're also going to learn about security risk management essential certificate and security risk management professional certifications. Now, you're going to understand at the end of this webinar as to how these two trainings and courses are different and how they're linked, how they can help you in your organizations, and how you can really access them. By the way, they're all free. So let me just go through a very quick outline of what this webinar is all about. So right after me, I'll hand back to Lisa Riley, who's the executive director of GISF, and by the way, needs no introduction. I haven't, in my 12 years security life, I haven't met anyone mostly who doesn't know Lisa's name, at least. But if you're one of those, today's your chance. You'll get to hear from her, learn from her about certificate and certifications, and also you'd be able to ask her questions as part of the panel. All right. So she's going to talk about journey and milestones in SRM, which is security risk management professionalization. She's also going to talk about, you know, how the two the certificate and the certifications, how they differ, and what are the, you know, different characteristics of both the courses, and how they can help you. Then going forward, we will have two extremely insightful presentations by Michael O'Neill and Sean Bickley. So Sean Bickley will come first. Sean Bickley will be presenting on behalf of GISF, Global Interagency Security Forum, and Michael O'Neill will be speaking on behalf of INSSA, International NGO Safety and Security Association. Both Michael and Sean, well, they're highly accomplished security risk management professionals with years of experience and significant contribution to this sector. And their detailed bios and profiles would be posted on the chat as they take this virtual stage. So after these presentations, there will be a question and answer session where we will be joined by our colleagues from Cornerstone On Demand Foundation, which probably you all know as Disaster Ready, which is their online, free online resource program. And we'll be joined by Director of Insecurity Insight as well. And I will be introducing those colleagues in just a bit, just before the panel segment. So with that, I guess you're clear on how the webinar will go and you're excited about it. Without much further ado, I will hand it to Lisa Riley.
Great, thank you very much, Javeria. So what is security in the humanitarian and aid sector? Ask this question of a dozen different people and you'll get many different answers. At one end of the spectrum, there are those who think security is about being risk averse and something that is designed to stop programs being implemented. Some see it as the visible security measures of guards, gates, and procedures. And at the other end of the spectrum, we have those who see security risk management as the enabling factor that facilitates access and the sustainable implementation of programs. This program-related security risk management approach is really the basis for the current professional position for most security responsible staff within the humanitarian sector, and really represents this idea of professionalism. But reaching this perspective has been a long journey and one that is still ongoing. In 2000, the Interagency Standing Committee, IASC, created a short-term staff security task force chaired by WFP. This task force came up with initial recommendations in 2002 in the form of a menu of options. Generally, at this time, the only security professionals in humanitarian response were in the UN, although slowly NGOs started recruiting their own security staff, often with a lack of clarity on who or what they actually required. I think of my own experiences in 2002. I was working in northern Afghanistan, and there was an international in the team fulfilling the logistics and security function. It was his first job after leaving the British military as an officer in the Guards. He understood very little about humanitarian response, or indeed humanitarian responders, and we understood very little about him. Some of the issues we faced included him implementing rules differently for men and women, and his management style was dictatorial and unsuccessful. The result of this clash was that for my remaining years working in the field as program and country manager, I avoided recruiting international security staff. And this included in contexts such as Mindanao in the Philippines, Aceh in the tsunami response, and when I went back to Afghanistan and Pakistan in 2010. Fortunately, the situation has changed a lot over the last 20 years, and we've seen growth in international and national security staff in the sector, both in numbers, but more importantly in professionalism. Key moments during this period include in 2006, the formation of the European Interagency Security Forum. This is a networking organisation for the global security responsible staff. In 2019, we transitioned to the Global Interagency Security Forum. We now have over 130 member organisations. Other points during this time, in 2011, the organisation which grew out of the Afghanistan NGO Security Organisation became the International NGO Security let me say that again, became INSSA, the International NGO Safety Organisation, and really specialising in coordinating security at a country level. In 2017, INSSA, the International NGO Safety and Security Association, launched the first certification programme for security professionals at country level. And this was followed in 2020 with the regional level certification. And Michael will be talking more about this. The work started by the IASC task force continued to evolve, with the first Saving Lives Together framework for improving security arrangements amongst IOs, NGOs and UN was endorsed by the IASC in 2006. This framework was updated in 2016, and it creates a stronger partnership approach to staff safety and security. And really, while is not perfect, creates a foundation for us working together as professionals across NGOs, UN and IOs. These changes to the professionalism of security in the sector were driven by those doing it. We recognise the importance of coordinating and working with others, and the need for establishing good practices for effective security risk management across the sector. In 2020, we actually gained recognition outside of the security sphere. Bioforce, a French NGO that specialises in building the capacity of organisations working in crisis zones, undertook its State of Humanitarian Professions review, and for the first time included safety and security as a specific profession. In 2021, the Leading Edge programme and the Humanitarian Networks Partnerships Week identified integrating security risk management across humanitarian response as a priority topic for the first time. Despite these changes, as I have said, there are still those within the humanitarian space who are stuck in the past and see security professionals as risk averse rather than problem solvers. At GISF, we're trying to change this, and to help that process, we've created this short film, which we'll show now for your interest.
Insecurity is a major barrier to reaching those in need of humanitarian aid. Unsafe conditions for aid workers are the biggest obstacle to humanitarian access, according to the majority of affected people surveyed in the 2020 Humanitarian Access Score Report. Nearly 500 aid workers were killed, kidnapped, or seriously injured while working to protect millions of people from the effects of violent conflict, hunger, and the effects of climate change in 2020. Frontline aid workers, predominantly national staff, are especially at risk. People in the most insecure countries or areas are underserved, as far fewer aid agencies are able to operate in these places due to the high risk. So even as needs increase, response to the most vulnerable people declines, leading to loss of lives and suffering. That's why security risk management, SRM, is essential to address the risks that arise from this insecurity, so that we can keep aid workers safe and achieve sustainable access for vulnerable communities to assistance. SRM is not about being risk-averse or restricting programs, but understanding the threats in a specific context, how the organization, staff and programs are vulnerable to these threats, and mitigating the risks. This enables organizations to prepare for crises before they happen, respond effectively, and recover and learn from them, allowing operations to continue. While we cannot eliminate risks entirely, we can often put measures in place to mitigate those risks. Managing risks is also about building relationships with local communities, staff, and other key stakeholders who could affect an organization's operating environment to ensure the safe and effective implementation of programs. Collaboration among humanitarians is crucial, as effective SRM requires understanding the context and working with different teams such as HR, finance, partnership and program staff, as well as having an appropriate budget. Because no one is safe until we are all safe. Security is everyone's responsibility. The diverse populations we work with require diverse staff who need to be kept safe. Humanitarian workers' personal security is impacted by the interplay between who they are, where they work, and their role and organization. That's why it's important to take a person-centered approach to our security that is inclusive and embraces the diversity of our teams. All staff can be vulnerable to serious threats depending on their personal profile and the context. We can't eliminate all the risks, but we can work together to manage them effectively and keep aid workers safe. By investing in our safety and security today, we can help affected communities access the support they need. Join us in this mission. Visit our website and learn more about humanitarian security risk management.
Great, thank you, Megan. I've worked in the humanitarians and aid sector now for almost 30 years. And I can't believe it, I started very young, honestly. And despite my initial misgivings, I am happy that security risk management is being professionalized within the sector. While there are many security skills that are transferable from different sectors, there is a knowledge base that is specific to our community, and this needs to be understood and respected. I've met a number of people from outside the humanitarian sector who are actually shocked by the professionalism of colleagues within our sector. But why should this be? Humanitarian organisations are working in the most dangerous places in the world. And if we're going to work in these places, even if only working in moderately dangerous places, organisations have a responsibility to their staff to keep them as reasonably safe as possible, or as safe as is reasonably possible. And this is a legal as well as a moral requirement. So if you are in a conflict zone or an area with high and violent crime, or even just a country with a culture and language different to yours, wouldn't you want to know that the person doing their best to keep you safe is a competent professional? I know I do. And as we think about this question of professionalisation, we would like your thoughts on the process that we're going through. And we will now launch a Mentimeter poll. And we would like you to tell us, what challenges do you foresee for the professional development of security risk management. And I think if Megan shares her screen now, you'll see the poll numbers that you need to activate the access code, and it's also, the link is also in the chat. So you can see here, this is the question: what challenges do you foresee for the professional development of security risk management? And this could be with you as an individual, or within your organization. Okay, postgraduate studies. I don't know whether that means a lack of postgraduate studies here. Lack of main funding to main staff long term. Lack of awareness in higher management. I think that's linked. Lack of buy-in from leadership, I think that's key. A number of issues around budgets and budget cuts. No leverage with donors, no representation as a sector. Absolutely. I mean, this is something that GISF is trying to build. We're talking to a number of donors about different events, but really looking for that leverage is interesting. So a lot about finance, integrated with programs, making sure that qualifications are adequate and appropriate. Lack of leadership. Yeah, interesting. Again, budgets, leadership, qualifications, some 3 key areas. What we're going to do is we're going to leave that open, if you'd like to stop sharing the screen, and come back to that after we've heard from Sean and Michael. So Sean Bickley, as a consultant who has worked for GISF and EISF on and off now for a number of years, and has really taken an active part working on the certificate with Disaster Ready, which he's now going to tell you more about. Over to you, Sean.
Thank you, Lisa, and greetings, everybody. Nice to see a big turnout for this event, but also an opportunity to launch and tell you a little bit more about the Security Risk Management Essentials Certificate, which is a sort of new online program launched on the Disaster Ready learning platform, which is a result of a partnership between Disaster Ready and Security INSSA and GISF. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so I want to sort of firstly just give a little bit of background and around the idea of kind of the different, linking also to the professionalization and what the kind of options and the opportunities there is. And I think a key aspect around professional development is creating multiple pathways for that learning, for people, the opportunity for all aid workers, to have that opportunity to enhance their security awareness and skills, not only to sort of look after themselves, but importantly in the context of security risk management, to look after their colleagues. And security trainings, inductions, orientations, these all play a vital part in that professional development and improving the awareness and capacity in the sector. So, it's about creating those opportunities and providing training that's appropriate for the risks that people are working, the context and the risks that people are working in, but then also about providing it specific to the roles and responsibilities that they have. This isn't new, and most organizations understand the importance of security training. But I think, in practice, there's several barriers, and some of those barriers have been highlighted earlier in terms of around finance and budgets. They remain a significant barrier, and also the availability of training within different organizations to be able to provide that to their staff. There's been significant improvements when it comes to personal security and the availability of personal security training, but security risk management or security management training, that still remains a challenge in some organizations. It's still, I think, fairly common, and from my experience, and maybe others would share that you would find staff who have direct management responsibilities for other colleagues in high-risk environments and who still have not received or have access to any security management training. So, how are they able to undertake those responsibilities if they haven't had that exposure? But with the increasing sort of development of online security tools, e-learning resources, etc., there's now a wide range of options available and freely available in some cases for organizations to enhance the capacity of their staff and the security management capacity of the staff and the work for their organizations. So what, over the years, I mean, just as GISF and as Lisa was pointing out, has been sort of centre at producing resources that help strengthen the capacity of NGO security professionals, or those that just have the responsibility of the security of staff and programs within their organisation. Previously, GISF collaborated with Disaster Ready back in 2019 on the development of sort of several interactive mobile learning guides and on key security topics. And this was based around the Security to Go publication that GISF did at the time. But what, as part of a sort of wider initiative to create opportunities for professional qualifications, these Ready to Go mobile guides have now been updated. And this is the process that's gone on for the last few months, updating those and developing this new Security Risk Management Essential Certificate. And this assessment-based certificate program includes 9 short modules on critical security risk management issues, and also a learning test. And it's a total length of the whole program is 3 hours. It also includes the Insecurity Insights module on managing security incidents as well. What I'd like to do now is maybe introduce a short video. There's a promotional video that Disaster Ready has developed that explains a little bit about the SRM Essential Certificate.
Do you want to develop your skills in security risk management for humanitarian operations? Many aid and development organizations operate in challenging and complex environments. Security risk management is critical for every organization to keep staff safe and programs sustainable. We partnered with the Global Interagency Security Forum and Insecurity Insight to develop the Free Security Risk Management Essential Certificate. This certificate program is designed to help you build a strong foundation in security risk management practices and principles. You will learn how to assess and mitigate security risks, develop strategies and contingency plans, manage security incidents, ensure digital security, contract private security providers, and more. And here is the best part: the course's test and certificate are all 100% free. Do not miss this opportunity to add a professional certificate to your CV or job profile, and help your organization deliver safe and sustainable programs to people and communities affected by crisis. Learn more at disasterready.org/certificates.
So maybe sort of expanding a little bit on some of the things that came up in the video is, kind of what are some of the benefits of this course, and how is this going to benefit you as an individual, but also as an organization. And for individuals, clearly it's an opportunity to sort of understand more about security risk management. It's as it describes, an essential introduction. It sort of outlines the sort of basics around security risk management and what is involved, and some of the critical aspects around managing risk and security in challenging environments. For organizations, it provides, potentially a cost-effective means of providing SRM learning opportunities for its staff. It's not going to replace sort of more comprehensive security risk management trainings, but it could be included as part of an orientation or an induction or an onboarding for new staff, especially for staff who have security management responsibilities. As it's been stressed, it's free. One of the kind of barriers again around training is, well, about fees and cost, etc. Well, it's freely available. It's on the Disaster Ready platform. So already staff may already be using that as a platform already for training and accessibility. So it already has a number of aspects of increasing access to regardless of staff's locations as well. And it also works on different devices. Mobile use is very good on there, low bandwidth as well. So the opportunity to make it accessible to staff who are in isolated remote locations as well is an additional benefit of a course like this. And then also on the individuals, individuals are able to sort of demonstrate that they have completed the course. They'll obtain a certificate at the end of the course. And so that makes it, for an organization, that makes it easier to monitor and track compliance. So if you do have this as part of your onboarding, you're able to make sure that your staff have achieved it and completed the certificate and monitor that. But it also enables individuals to be able to transfer that learning from one organization to another. They can take that certificate with them and show that they have done this course like this when they move to another organization. Who's it for? Well, you know, the SRM Essential Certificate is aimed at a number of people. Really, it's aimed at any staff, anybody who has a security risk management responsibility within aid and development organizations. That can be security staff, security focal points, but it also can be other staff, project staff, program staff, HR. It could be country managers, others that have responsibilities as well. It is not just aimed at, you know, security professionals. And it's also quite, you know, probably more suited to those small and medium-sized NGOs who don't have existing internal online SRM courses. Some may have developed, some of the large organizations have developed their own online security courses, trainings. So this is maybe more suited to organizations who don't have those resources available to them. Also, especially for partner organizations as well, whereas if you're working with partner organizations, the ability to sort of flag this, make this available and known to those organizations so they can use it as part of their sort of training for their staff, or part of the partnership is encouraging partner organizations to use this sort of resources they're training. While it's not principally aimed at security professionals, it still, you know, it still has value for those experienced security staff who, you know, and in some cases it could be for those that are preparing to do the security risk management professional certification exam through INSSA, then a resource like this, a training like this can enhance their knowledge as well. And Michael will talk about that later. If we look at the sort of nine modules included in the essential certificate, addresses many of the key processes involved in security risk management. Everything from undertaking risk assessments, developing security plans, developing contingency plans, managing security incidents, and then through to contracting private security providers. So a wide range of the issues and challenges and processes involved in managing security risks. Each module is broken down into sort of 15 minutes of learning, and it combines both up-to-date content and sort of current best practices in SRM. And it's all laid out in a very accessible and intuitive way. It mixes a mixture of graphics and images. There's pop-out learning points, interactive on-screen questions and tasks. All of these things are going to aid the user's experience and interaction with the course, as you can see in the video here. And one of the things that maybe separates the SRM Essential Certificate Program from other online courses is the assessment and validation of the user's knowledge. So for many organizations, this validation, you know, for aid workers or for individuals, this validation of their knowledge is important. It's the ability for them to demonstrate through the certificate that they have this knowledge, they have done this, but it's also going to be valuable for their own professional development, their career advancement as well, and the ability to take that with them. Each module has several knowledge check questions, so users can ensure that they understand the topic before they progress or as they progress. And then once they've completed all the modules, it will unlock the test. And then the test they take, and if they score 80%, they can obtain a certificate. However, if they are not successful, they can retake the test as many times as they need in order to achieve the passing score required. Although the SRM Essential Certificate has only just recently been launched, so the feedback is still fairly new, and accessibility to it is still quite new. What we've seen so far in terms of the level of feedback has been very positive. And it kind of mix of two. One is many individuals are kind of highlighting the immediate benefit to them as a personal learning that they achieve from it and their understanding of SRM. But also it's coming across very clearly that others appreciate the certificate's potential benefit within their organizations and the opportunities it has to roll it out across their staff, especially to staff who have security responsibilities. And in some cases, thinking about considering a mandatory requirement for their staff to complete such a course. Lastly, I suppose to say is that although it's only been developed at this stage in English, the aim is still to make it available in different languages in the near future. So that's something certainly that GISF and Disaster Ready are very conscious about. So yeah, I think that's probably, I'll draw a close there. I'll now hand you over to Michael, who can discuss the INSSA Security Risk Management Professional Certification. Michael, are you there?
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it. Let me go to my screen here. Okay, thank you so much. So, complementing Sean's presentation, I just want to point out that the International NGO Safety and Security Association has as its mission, through advocacy, collaboration, standardization, and professionalization, professionalization development. INSSA seeks to support and otherwise address the safety and security challenges facing humanitarians and humanitarian workers and development workers globally. Our members represent field level, regional, headquarters professionals, not only in the security risk management profession, but also in the humanitarian development programmatic areas. Lisa has mentioned, and Sean has also mentioned, that in as much as we are addressing the professionalization of the sector of security risk management, safety and security risk management is everybody's business. And so everyone should have a passing familiarity of what the standards are and how to achieve these. And to this end, INSSA established and began to think through how do we professionalize our membership first and foremost, and then expanded through Disaster Ready to the general humanitarian development population. INSSA was established in 2010. It was an outgrowth of an initiative established by the Security Advisory Group of Interaction in those days, and received an initial grant from OFDA, which is now the Bureau of Humanitarian Affairs at the US government. The INSSA is governed by a multinational board. Javeria, who you met earlier on, is our current chair. We have more than 4,500 members globally. Majority of those are national staff serving in their own countries in some development program or security capacity. Our membership represents over 50 nationalities. We have received donations and support from other NGOs, from private sector, from individual donors, and from bilateral organizations. So our certification has defined security risk management professional competencies at 4 management levels. And so how did we establish these competencies? Is we did an outreach over the course of several months. Through security directors in the NGO sector, through the ICRC, through academics, private security firms, just to kind of get a global sense of what are the basic competencies that any effective security risk management professional should be able to demonstrate in order to be effective in the field. And so based on our analysis and our feedback that we received from all of these various stakeholders, we developed these competencies in 4 management levels, at the country level, at the regional level, at global level, and at executive level. And we developed a process to certify that an individual professional has demonstrated their capacity to meet these competencies within a particular management level. So if you think about it as a matrix, you have 4 categories, and I will show you this in a second. You have 4 categories of competencies, and each one is stratified at the most operational tactical, which is the country level, up to the most strategic, which would be the executive level. But they're still the same categories of competencies. The initial grant to develop these competencies was issued by Irish Aid, and we're very appreciative of Irish Aid's support for INSSA over the years. We also engage a competency-based talent management support from the human resources sector group. This is a Canadian operation, and they took us through a process. And I must say, I was deeply involved in doing this to develop the competencies in an appropriate way and make sure that each competency is linked directly to a seminal document. So you'll see below many of the documents that we used as the basis and are the study guides for preparation for the examinations. But this process really took the most time and effort to really kind of hone in and define the competencies appropriately, and then develop a way of measuring an individual's understanding and ability to think through how they would apply these competencies in certain situations. As I mentioned, we got input and review from the leading global risk management experts and innovators from across a broad range of professions, honed in and specifically to NGO and humanitarian security professionals, but also from, as I mentioned, academics, private security, private sector, public sector, et cetera. The list of documents, I didn't give a whole list there. You can go to the website and see what the study documents are, but the seminal documents are ISO 31000 on risk management. Then we have the Humanitarian Practice Network, GPR8, which is security management in violent environments. We have the ODI, Insecurity Insight, who is represented here today, the ICRC, this says EISF, but it's now GISF, Security Incident Information Management documents that will also be mentioned again later today. These form the seminal documents, and these are the study guides. Now, unlike the presentation that Sean gave and the Security Risk Management Essentials course, INSSA is not providing training. This is not a training course, this is a certification. And so the idea here is that the individual self-educates, self-studies, and we highly recommend that they start with the Security Risk Management Essentials course. The complementarity between that course and sitting for the examination is undeniable. I took the time to go back and go through the course, the Essentials course, and found it to be very enlightening and really kind of summarize and put a real nice structure on what effective security risk management looks like. So from our position, if one were to take the Essentials course, then do the study, then sit for the examination, that is the course that seems to be the best way forward at this time. Currently, our examinations are available in English, Spanish, and French, and we hope to have Arabic available by the end of the year. We are very particular about the Arabic translations, and we're testing it out in various forums to make sure it's accurate before we begin. At this point, not all of the resources available are available in all these languages, but we're striving to create a language-specific base of resources that people could prepare for the examination. So as you can see here, the competency areas are in risk assessment, principles, policies, and protocols, leadership, management, and implementation, and critical incident response. And you can see, if you see these four, and then you go back and recall what Sean was presenting, you can see there's a nice complementarity between the Security Risk Management Essentials course and what the certification, the INSSA certification is measuring. So each of these competencies is then defined at various levels, as I mentioned before, from moving from country to regional to global to executive. This is the actual competency framework that you would see for each of the categories. So you can see that there are four categories. There's risk assessment, principles, policies, and protocols, leadership, management, and implementation, and critical incident response. So within those, you have these very specific competencies, and these are defined in a broader framework. This is just a summary. And you can see that under each area, you've got several competencies, 5 or 6 competencies per. And each of these are further defined by specific measurable indicators that are embedded into the examination for your understanding or demonstrate that you understand what these are. And as you go up the scale from country level to regional level to global level to executive level, the strategic implementation of each of these follows along that same path. And this is the way the examinations are formulated. I'm going to leave that there just so people can take a good close look at what all of these various categories are. And this has been the standard template for us since we worked with HRSG to develop the competencies. So based on each competency then, or the collection of competencies, there's a 100-question examination that those taking the exam need to pass in order to get their certification. And each of the questions is sourced to its original document. And so if one were to be challenged on where did you find the correct answer for this question that was posted in the examination, we have the actual source that it's linked to. So if you want to get involved in the certification process, the first thing is the eligibility requirements, which are pretty flexible and pretty basic. INSSA membership is optional. In working with Disaster Ready and the Cornerstone Foundation to host and present the study materials and the exam, we have waived our fees and our membership requirements. We hope that people, by virtue of access to our examination and the certification process, will become INSSA members, but it's not a prerequisite. It is important, though, that before people take the examination, they have to abide by our code of conduct, which is based on humanitarian principles, and have a modicum of work experience and educational experience in the field. So the way that happens is once you engage the process, you can go to the certification site at the INSSA website, or you can enter through the Disaster Ready portal, and you will see outline all the various steps that have to go in there. Essentially, you access the study resources. Again, these can be accessed through the INSSA website or through Disaster Ready. Access to the resources is free. And I would include among these resources the Security Risk Management Essentials course that Sean mentioned that's been established by GISF and Disaster Ready. Once you feel comfortable and you feel like you've got a good sense of what the subject matter is, you can register for the examination. Again, examinations are free. There's no cost for registration. Once you complete the examination, you will get if you pass, you'll get a notification that you have passed, and you will be linked to your certification. If you did not pass, you will get a bit of a diagnosis of the areas you need to improve, and you can retake the examination as many times as you want, also for free. There might be a time lag between the time you take the exam. You might have to wait for 24 hours before you take it again, but it's a very short period. What's key to the certification process is that once you pass the examination, you automatically are enrolled in the continuing professional development program. This is also hosted by Disaster Ready. It's a seamless transition from certification to continuing professional development. And what this continuing professional development program means is that essentially over the course of the next 3 years after certification, the individual is expected to earn 180 quarter credits through various means of self-study, trainings, application in the field, et cetera. And I'll say a little bit more about that. To get more information about the Continuing Professional Development Program and to download the guide, again, you can go to the inssa.org /CPD site, or you can access it through Disaster Ready. So how does one earn these quarter credits? Well, first of all, we have a working committee at INSSA that has gone through with Disaster Ready many of the courses that they have there and have allocated CPD credits for those courses. So if you are in the learning system for Disaster Ready and you take one of these identified courses, upon completion of that course, your CPD credits automatically get added to your transcript, and that is maintained on the Disaster Ready website. However, you might have external resources. You might attend a training or a seminar or read a book that you want to get credit for. So you can submit that request and it will be reviewed, and then credits will be allocated. Once, let's say you read a book. I'm reading this book right now called You Are What You Risk. It's very insightful. I think it adds a lot to my professional capacity. And if I would like to get these credits, I would submit my request to this committee, and they would review it and allocate a certain number of credits. And once it's done for one, then that book goes into a list that anybody subsequently submitting this particular book for credits will be mainstreamed. Another way is a supervisor endorsed work project. So if you're taking on a discrete project, let's say over 3 months or 4 months, where you are managing them from beginning to end and demonstrating the certain competencies that one has learned through the certification process, you can get credit for that. If you're conducting primary research, if you're into thought leadership, or if you're putting out a publication, you can also get credits for these. So what are the benefits for the individual professional? And a lot of these have been built up and mentioned by Lisa and Sean. One is to build your capacity to be a better professional. It increases your credibility in the field. You have transferable skills that are documented and will help you to build your professional credibility. It gives you a proof of competency if you're within your own organization and then moving horizontally from organization to organization. As I mentioned, it's improved performance. The assumption here, and I think it's demonstrable based on the feedback that we are receiving, is people who have gone through the study process and have sat for the exam and have successfully completed the exam have stated that their ability to think through, problem solve, and apply these competencies in their day-to-day work has really improved their performance. And they've gotten this feedback also from their colleagues with whom they are working. The continuing professional development aspect of this is very important. Our field is changing all the time, and new risks emerge, new tools emerge, new challenges emerge. And so through the continuing professional development, our expectation is that security risk management professionals will stay on top of the situation and will continue to improve. The other individual benefit is marketability. We all have our careers to look forward to, and we're trying to help our certificates to move forward in the field and move up and become more and more influential professionals. Finally, there's also the ability to build one's self-confidence. If you have the of understanding the competencies and the rewards of demonstrating this in the field and getting positive feedback from your colleagues, this helps build one's individual self-confidence. Generally, for the NGO sector, we see that, and Lisa mentioned this, the evolution of the improved technical quality of our security risk management is undeniable. We have really come a long way from the days in the mid-90s and the early 2000s, where we were, in a way, doing the best we can with the resources we had available. And we've really honed in on trying to really improve the technical quality of the services we provide. It also builds and enhances our duty of care compliance. An organization is required by law, as Lisa mentioned, and through ethical values, to understand the foreseeable risk that is putting its people in, partners in, and putting in place reasonable measures to mitigate those risks. And this is really the essence of what the security risk management professional certification process is predicated on. Based on that, there's a reduced liability for the NGO sector. It helps build staff retention. If you're investing in your staff and helping them to develop professionally, there is an impetus for them to remain loyal to that organization and to continue to serve and build their capacity within the organization. It improves staff morale and confidence. It raises our professional hiring standard across the sector. I see already that advertisements for security managers have in there someone INSSA certification preferred or something to that extent. So you can see that organizations too are looking at this certification as a means of gauging their candidates for future hire. And we are ultimately developing the next generation of security risk management leaders within our sector. You know, it's a continuous stream, and we need to be diligent and look at how we are extending this capacity not only to the international NGOs, but through the local NGO sector. To date, there have been 924 individuals who have been certified at the country level and 274 at the regional level. And you can see the breakout here from the English, the French, and the Spanish. And that pretty much follows the release of those language examinations. We have a whole team that's looking at these data and trying to, as you can see, the Spanish is not as robust as we would like, but it hasn't been online so far. So we're really trying to build this up. And as I mentioned, the Arabic is right on the cusp of being released. I will end with just a couple of testimonials from individuals who have gone through the study process and have successfully completed the examinations, so that, you know, it's not just us speaking to you and trying to self-promote our program here, but really to get a sense from some of the people who have taken this. This one I think is important because, you know, this individual has been 16 years in the field and is revealing that they learned so many new things and were unaware of certain areas, right? Another one here, you'll see this is an independent consultant, right? And this individual, you know, has really helped them make that link between security risk management and program delivery. In this case, it was in Uganda. Okay. And then I just have one more here, Lisa, just so you can see that there's many of these individuals are security managers at the country level and or at headquarters level. So for any further information, you can go to the INSSA website, or you can contact INSSA at info@ingossa.org. I'll hand back to you, Lisa. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. And just before we go to the panel and the Q&A, and thank you for those of you who have been posting questions for the panel, perhaps we could have another quick look at the Mentimeter. Well, there's an interesting one in the middle: lack of organizational culture towards safety and security. No specialized persons at NGOs. Security tasks are assigned to other functions. I think that's an interesting one relating to the question Tom Bendel has just put up in the Q&A around that link between different partners. Understanding about the importance, I think that links with culture. Time to manage crises often overrides professional development. I think that's an interesting one. I know from personal experience, I tried 3 times to get on a management course, and each time I was pulled off to actually manage something that I was trying to learn about how to do properly. So I think recognizing the importance, or getting organizations to recognize the importance of professional development, I think is key. Similarity of courses, qualifications are limited. I think, again, a question this could be linked to with what Chris put in, the questions around some of the soft skills, and where do we go with those at that side of it. Okay, common assumption that former military personnel are better equipped for SRM. I think that's an interesting one. We're seeing a change in the makeup of who's coming into that, but certainly some organizations still lean to that ex-military approach or preference. Okay, I think, you know, some really interesting stuff. We will keep this, certainly as GISF, we'll be discussing it with INSSA. I think as we go into the panel discussion, the panel members will also be pulling on this, the thoughts that were put into the Mentimeter in terms of some of the answers that they give, to try and capture some of those thoughts. But thank you very much for all your inputs into the Mentimeter. And on that note, I hand back to Javeria, who will lead us in our panel discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Oh my God, so much information, all very, very useful. I really enjoyed the presentations by Sean and Michael, and I hope our participants also gained, insights into SRME certificate, which is Security Risk Management Essential Certificate, and INSSA's Security Risk Management Professional Certification programs. And I see a lot of conversation and questions happening on chat and in the Q&A, which is absolutely amazing. Thanks so much for your interest. All right, so now we're going to start the Q&A, which I'm sure all of you have been waiting for. We're going to try and take as many questions as possible. Let me just introduce the panel. Of course, you've heard from Michael. Michael's going to be on the panel. Lisa's going to be on the panel. Sean is going to be on the panel. But there are 3 more guests that have been with us throughout, and I want to introduce them. So let me start with Christina Will, who is the Director for Insecurity Insight. So maybe we can post Christina's full bio in the chat. And Christina, hi, thanks for being with us. Are you ready for some really hard questions?
Yeah, looking forward to that discussion. Yeah, it's been good so far. So yeah, thanks.
Great, great. All right. And now from Cornerstone On Demand Foundation, Disaster Ready, that you're all familiar with, we have the Director for Disaster Ready, Tina Boulding. Tina, hi. Thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
Great. But, we have another fantastic colleague with us, Stacy Gajera, and I apologize if I'm not saying the last name right. So correct me. Tracy, how are you? Tracy is the Project and Learning Design Manager, Cornerstone On Demand Foundation, Disaster Ready. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
Great. So now that we have, our new panelists, meaning, the new faces on the screen. So let me start with a few questions with you, actually, and then we'll go to the Q&A questions that have been posted on chat. So Christina, may I please start with you? We've been asked, look, in the SRME Essential Certificate, there is a whole module on incident management information. Why do you think it's essential for organizations to manage information regarding security incidents? And how was the journey? What was the thinking behind including a separate module in the SRME Essential Certificate? Christina.
Thanks. So, I mean, obviously, all of this is about making the environment safer, but unfortunately, incidents do happen. So that's why we also need to think, how do organizations respond when tragedy strikes or when unfortunate events occur? So the Security Incident Information Management module looks at the competencies that are required to deal with it. It's how you respond to staff, but there's also a really other important element in there, because this is all about learning and understanding. And the aim is to prevent and mitigate incidents. And that means organizations need to understand. And there is no better place to really understand that than knowing what incidents your organization experiences and what the aid sector as a whole experiences. Because if you're running a health program, it may be different from if you're providing food aid. If you're trying to protect a local female staff member, the situation may be different for an international male. So understanding that, you can learn from looking at your incidents. And that is what this whole sort of module is about. And then the last sort of point in there is another disaster ready short guide that is actually directed at staff. And this is not directly included for those security professionals who are doing this. But we think this is also really important as potentially an onboarding process to let all staff know why they need to talk about security incidents. Because as the security manager, you need to know what's going on to respond to it. And your staff are your eyes and ears on the ground. So you need to develop a good relationship with the whole organization and each individual. So that is sort of what this module is about. And yeah, so looking forward to this sort of discussion, and there's loads of additional material on this. So yeah, back to you, Javiria.
Thank you, Christine. I think very comprehensive, and I'm sure colleagues and myself have follow-up questions, but in, you know, looking at time, we'll probably move on for now. All right, so my next question is with Tina, because I see you on the screen, so here it comes. Tina, please talk to us about why, in your view, these online trainings and certifications are important, and how can they help organizations manage security risk management, manage their security risks in a more professional, more effective. To address this, please also, if you could touch upon, you know, what is the value of assessment-based certificates? Yeah.
Sure. No, it's a great question, and it's one I saw a little bit going on in the chat. But basically, organizations have a very important responsibility to provide training for their staff, and this can be challenging. We've seen several of the reasons pop up in the Mentimeter, whether it's due to funding, support from leadership, lack of time. I mean, there's plenty of barriers. But because these assessment-based certificate and certification programs we've been talking about today are actually, they're developed with security risk management experts, they're accessible online, and they're provided at no cost, it really gives organizations the opportunity to minimize those barriers. They can trust that the content is great because it's coming from experts. They can, and what's important about that is that it helps to promote standardization of terms and practices in the sector, which help make humanitarian response more effective. They can also use the online component to be able to extend the reach of that training to all staff. That includes national staff, international staff, and we're seeing more and more the organizations are extending that to their partners. And again, this is there is no cost to the learner or to the organization. And so an important question somebody else asked was, well, what are organizations doing to value this? We've seen that learner demand is very high. Year after year, disaster ready learners tell us we want more assessment-based certificates and certifications. Why? Because they want to be able to demonstrate their competence. They want to be able to know, hey, I'm learning, I'm validating that learning, and I want my organization to value it. I do think there's work that organizations need to do to be able to embrace these certificate and certification programs more, to make decisions around who they hire, how they onboard, how they move people, the mobility between projects or between organizations. And people really want that. So when I think about it, I think the more knowledgeable and professional that we can become as security risk management individuals in the sector, then the more that the value of the certificate and certifications will become at the organizational level. That individual demand creating organizational demand and reaping the benefits that you saw benefits as Sean talked, as Michael spoke, all along the way.
Thank you, Tina. Very comprehensive. Right. So now we're going to go to the Q&A section where I'm seeing loads and loads of questions. I think I'm going to discuss with my colleagues in the background as to how we're going to what we're going to do about the unanswered questions. Are we going to respond? But let's start, and then we'll see how we can address all of the questions. If not in this space, then in a different way. All right, so let me start with Sylvan Lightburn. So they've asked, I have recently completed the SRM Essential Certificate. I must say it's a complete SRM course. That's really good news. Now the question is, organizations sometimes forget to include bomb training or bomb threat assessments at checkpoint, or searching for bombs within a building, or communicating with a bomber, which is probably negotiation that you're referring to. So probably what I'm understanding is that a question might be, is there room for including this in the current or some future certificate program? So can I go to Sean for this one?
Yeah, thanks, Javira. And yeah, it's an interesting point. I mean, I think obviously it gets into maybe going into sort of really into the detail of particular threats and how you manage and deal with particular threats. And one of the things with the essential certificates course is focusing a little bit more on the process. So we've looked at the sort of essential security risk management process, so how you assess risk, how you develop plans, how you develop contingency plans, sort of following that process. And obviously through the risk assessment, you may identify that bomb threats or sort of targeted attacks, etc., may be a particular threat that you're dealing with. So, I mean, while that's not addressed within the modules in that level of detail, because it will depend on different contexts and different environments, I think it's worth flagging maybe other resources. So there is lots of other resources out there. So within GISF has a lot of resources on its website around dealing with particular types of threats, including bomb threats or other targeted type of threats like that. The recent resource, the NGO Security Toolbox, which we've developed, also has a section in there on particular threats and addresses these sorts of threats as well as many others. So it's about combining these things. I think you have these essential certificate program, which is about the basic training around the module and the process, but you can draw in other resources to get that expertise or that advice from that, rather than necessarily building the most comprehensive training that addresses all of these things.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sean. And I think that's one of the challenges. If the training or certificate program becomes too lengthy, that's another deterrent and people don't take it. So there's always this, balancing act. How much do you keep in there? And also the duration. So I'm sure you got your answer, Sylvan, a really good one. Okay, next one, next question. I think it's going to this. The next one is going to Michael. Michael, get ready. It's about, are there any thoughts to build on a more strategic or soft skills that the excuse me, security leaders might need to develop along the lines of the GISF partnership with Madrid University? Right, Michael? So I think talking about softer skills, the leadership skills in security, is there any thought like that in the sector?
Well, already, if you look at the competency framework that I showed, leadership and was one of them. Soft skills, I think, are negotiation skills, I presume. Organizational change management skills. These are not the things that are necessarily communication. These are not necessarily the skills that you would directly relate as technical skills of security risk management, but operational skills within an organization, absolutely. And these are already included in the certification process. Specifically negotiation, stakeholder analysis, community engagement, managing up. And I would say also that as you move from the country to the regional and the competencies that are developed already for the global and executive, they become far more strategic. So at the upper end, you're talking about how do you deal with board members? How do you address your senior management to get them to commit to investing in security risk management within the organization, to have these discussions at a higher level about duty of care and those kind of responsibilities. I think we always have to be mindful of these emerging hard and soft skills, if you want to call it that, and always be diligent to, when we re-edit and we revise and we create new competency frameworks, that we include both the hard and the soft skills in that.
Thanks, Michael. Yes, Lisa, I was just coming to you because it had a reference to the Madrid University. Go ahead, Lisa.
Thank you, Javeria. I just very quickly to build on what Michael was saying. It's unfortunate the relationship with Madrid University hasn't gone where we wanted it to. It still seems to be the cost is restricting people from joining, even with the discounts that we can offer to the NGO community. So they were the skills around that weren't security skills, but the skills that security managers need, as Michael says, to influence the board, to actually be valuable managers. So around leadership and budgeting and things like that. So we will be looking at what we can do with, if, you know, the partnership with Madrid isn't going to work, what else can we do to make sure we don't lose the opportunities, and how can we do it in a way which is affordable to the NGO community? Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, yeah, so now we have a question from Tom, which I accidentally deleted earlier. I see it again here. Oh, okay, so there are two questions. Let me pick one, Tom, if you don't mind, just for the time sake. So the question is, because all these certifications, and I'm paraphrasing, all these certifications, the professionalization, but is there a risk that we may be over professionalizing SRM? And what about people that are not necessarily holding security risk management related roles, but they still have a role to play, such as country directors, board members? Are we not creating some sort of exclusion by over professionalizing the security risk managers and maybe, you know, leaving the other lot out? I hope I've justified your question, Tom. But all right, so I'll go to, let me go to, all right, Lisa, I'll come to you. Let me just go to Christina. Do you have, okay, no, let me go to Lisa first. Christina, I'll come to you because I thought I put you on spot. Lisa, go ahead.
I think this is absolutely a key question, and it's part of the work the GISF has been doing, particularly with the Leading Edge programme and the Humanitarian Partnership Networks Week, where we're really trying to target non-security professionals to join the conversation. And I think we need the professionalisation, and part of that professionalism is being able to talk to others and to get others to understand what it is that security risk management is about, and not reinforcing the silo. And I think that's the problem, perhaps, when you have less experienced people in the security roles, they reinforce the silo approach. So that's really part of the professional journey, is around breaking down the silos. And I've found it very interesting when I've spoken to long-term humanitarians who've worked for many years in the field, and they go, I know nothing about security. And I go, well, you've worked in a conflict zone for 10 years, you're still alive, you must understand something about security. So it's also around the language we use, and having events where we try and encourage non-security people into these events where we talk about it. And HMPW, I think, is a really good example of where we're creating opportunities for that.
Absolutely. No, I absolutely will come to Michael. I just want to say, I think this question has a lot of overlapping angles. So I'm going to actually go to a couple of panelists. So I called Christina's name first. So Christina, are you happy to now weigh in? And then I'll come to you, Michael.
Sure. I think I would have said something very similar to Lisa. So I think the point of the professionalization is to make sure things get written down and it can be more easily shared more widely. And in particular with those who do really understand security, but use a very different language. And just two examples. There are groups of organizations who do something that is called community feedback. And that, in a way, is a security risk assessment, because they're getting really good information of how people perceive the programs, what they think of what's going on, where they may have misconceptions, and where the opposition to aid programs may be within the community. And that is an essential security risk assessment. They don't use the word security when they do this. So by being this sort of professionalization, I think we're helping the communication with people who Lisa said actually really understand it, but use a very different language. And to throw in another example, there are also so many questions about specific programs, and people are so concerned to really providing, for example, healthcare and ensuring the access for people who need access to healthcare. But this is not talked about in the language of security risk management, but it really is the same thing. And that, I think, it's where it really helps to have this professionalization, because we can share the documents and we can engage in these discussions, but they're really important to actually have these discussions and not to stay in the silo.
Great, thanks, Christina. Michael, your turn.
Yeah, I think the key here is the presumption that professionalization is the equivalent of siloing, or the agglomeration of all responsibilities on security risk management to a single professional. And I think if you read through the resources and go through the process, you will find that actually part of that professionalization is extending this out, and it builds in a point of contact, accountability. You know, if you draw a parallel with, you know, fiscal responsibility, being responsible with donor funds is everybody's responsibility. That doesn't mean by having a finance department, therefore you take all that responsibility away from everybody. I mean, somebody's conducting audits to make sure that this is being done appropriately. There's a point of contact if you have a question about policy or procedure. And if you use that as sort of an analog, you can see that the professionalization is also providing that same thing. Of course, we want to be vigilant not to have that happen where everything, you know, I don't have to think about this because I have a security manager who's doing it for me. That is not tantamount to professionalization. That's anti-professionalization, really, if you think about it, because it's an enabling process to help meet the organizational mission and, you know, deliver, you know, to vulnerable populations.
Yeah, interesting angle. And
That's
Sean,
conversation has been going on for a long time, but I mean, this is, yeah, and we need to be sensitive to that. I don't want to discount it, but it's something that is, I think, if you look at the competencies, it's integrated in the way the competencies have been developed.
Yeah, yeah. No, I was just thinking, Sean, at this point that maybe, you know, the SRME, the essential certificate, that is why we'd like organizations to encourage even the non-security people to take that basics essential. What are your thoughts, Sean?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think as sort of highlighted in the others' comment is that, you know, there's a lot of people who have been very strong operational staff who have been working in different areas, etc. They have been managing security throughout all of their career. And they may never have seen themselves in a security role. They may never have took a security course or something in the past, but they've been practicing security risk management for a long period of time. So something like the certificate in some ways enables them to sort of validate that experience with some sort of qualification or some show of demonstration of learning to say, well, look, I've been doing this role, but also I've made the effort to learn about security risk management. So it gives them the language, gives them the tools to then demonstrate that they actually are very good, competent security risk managers as well. So, you know, yes, encouraging that broadens the breadth of people who will get involved in the security risk management sector.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree. And I hope, Tom, you got your answer. All right. So coming to Stacey, I haven't spoken to you in a bit. All right, Stacey. So my question, of course, it's actually Willem's question. Let me not take credit for it. It's a very smart question. So the question is this certification, so any, you know, either the certificate, essential certificate or SRMP certification, are they accredited by any professional learning institute? And I'm asking you because, I mean, of course, Disaster Ready is kind of like this, you know, ocean of learning where all these courses are hosted, and we've sort of all worked with you as partners. Would you be able to respond to this question by Willem?
Yes, so the Security Risk Management Essentials was a partnership with GISF and Security Insight. Currently, it does not have accreditation with it, but it has all of the core global security standards, best practices in that content and the test. And then for the SRMP, I'll let Michael or say a little bit more about that if there was about the accreditations and everything.
Thanks, Stacey. That's very clear about the essential certificate. Michael, would you want to elaborate a little bit as to how this links with the continuing professional development, even if it's not accredited really? But over to you, please.
Yeah, that was part of our engaging with the HRSG, is that they were ensuring that we met professional standards for developing competencies and measuring the competencies through the examination process. The bonus was when we partnered with Disaster Ready and we connected this directly to the continuing professional development program. And this was in a way comparing our process to that of SHRM, which is the Society for Human Resource Management, right? And I see Tina, because together we sort of went through this process of trying to align this so that even outside of having any outside credentialing, we are consistent so that when the time comes, we are prepared to enter into that area. Right now, it's the collective consciousness of our members and the community at large that gives us validation. You know, when the SPHERE standards were developed so many years ago, there was no security risk management SPHERE standards. And this is what really prompted, why shouldn't we as security risk management professionals establish our own standards in this regard? And that's where the conversation started about the certification and professionalization. So I appreciate the question. I'm not sure if I answered it completely, but just to say we're sensitive to the fact that, you know, we are accountable to our community. And if what we're presenting and what the standards and best practices are not meeting people's needs, then we need to adapt and make sure that we're addressing these needs, which is the purpose of this forum really, is to get feedback from our constituents to make sure we're doing everything we can to support their efforts.
As I understood, I think probably the question might have been from the angle of, can the credits be transferred to another training? So I guess, you know, because some trainings do give that sort of, but that's, I see Tina saying no. All right, so I have a few more questions. Again, not my questions, but questions from the pool of questions. One question is actually both for Lisa and Tina, please. And that is, and then I'll come to Sean with another question. So Tina and Lisa, if you could please weigh in on current partnerships with any UK universities, UNDSS, or any other UN agency. So Lisa, would you want to go first?
I will answer very quickly, but I will also flag the time, Javeria. We do need to wrap up.
Oh, yes, we do. Certainly.
In terms of partnership, very quickly with the UN, we are an active part of the Saving Lives Together framework, but we also do work with WFP, UNHCR, and other organisations with their security staff. So they are involved in these discussions that we're having. With UK universities, we're currently working with UCL and Manchester University in particular, but we also have relationships with Portsmouth and other London universities. What I can say is we will be sending a follow-up email out to everybody who's attended this, and what we can include is written answers to any questions that haven't been covered.
Okay, thanks very much. I'll go to Tina and then I think I'll wrap up. Sorry, yeah, Sean.
Real quickly, Disaster Ready partners with many of the UN agencies, and we also have a partnership with the University of Edinburgh. Probably not saying that right, but yeah.
Edinburgh.
Thank you. What she said.
Okay, awesome, great. So I had a really tough question for Sean, and I was so looking forward to asking it, but Sean will get time to answer it in writing for all of you. Let me just go to Stacey for a last and final question of this segment, and that is, Stacey, we've often been asked there's so many, security certificates, certifications, country level, region level. Which one is right for me? How do I know? And if I know, how do I get there? Cut in all the, middle work. So
yes, great question. Yes, I'll end really quickly. But yes, the first step you can do is think of it as a learning pathway. You can sign up for Disaster Ready, create your account for free, and then you can go in and explore both programs. But the first place to start would be definitely the Security Risk Management Essentials, which covers the core practices and principles and standards, as Sean had really explained really well on that. That's the 9 courses and the test. And then after that, you can continue on to advance your competence, just demonstrating your competence with the SRMP exam, and that's the country level and or the regional level. And so more information you can find in Disaster Ready. There's a dedicated page you can look at to see which one is right for you. And we really encourage you to try the first Essentials certificate and then continue on. And we'd love to hear your feedback as well. And I think the links are in the chat now, so that's going to be giving you more information on how to create your account and sign up.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And honestly, without even speaking like 2 more lines, I'm going to hand back to Lisa, but I want to thank everybody. Thank you so much for being with us. Just stay on for 2 more minutes and we'll let you go. Thanks so much. Over to you, Lisa.
Okay, I'm not sure I will even take 2 minutes. Do just want to sort of repeat our thanks to all of the panelists who've joined us today and all of those behind the scenes who have not been on the panel but have worked so hard in bringing all of these certificates available. And I think to reinforce what Michael said is that these are not the result of 1 or 2 people, but they've really brought in a broad spectrum of experts to get that strong NGO perspective into the questions and the competency design. Thank you to everybody who's attended. I hope you found this useful and interesting. I think you know how to reach out to all of us if you'd like more information. I think there is a final slide, Megan, which just has some information about where you can go to find out any more that you would like to know. So on that note, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you to Javeria for co-hosting this on behalf of INSSA as well. And we look forward to hearing more from you in the future.
The people doing the world's most important work are up against the biggest challenges. Since the 90s, security incidents involving NGOs have increased as their independence and impartiality no longer protect them. Humanitarians are actively targeted, as well as exposed to the risks of conflict and disaster, facing kidnapping, injury, and death in order to help those in need. And the threats to their safety means their ability to help diminishes too. NGOs began to create roles for dedicated security professionals, but they often lacked support and resources and worked in isolation. In 2006, a group of them from the UK and Ireland got together to develop coherent approaches to security risk management in the humanitarian space, eventually becoming an established network, the European Interagency Security Forum. With a strategic, inclusive and collaborative focus, the forum has created a centre of excellence, facilitates a peer-to-peer network, builds capacity for security risk management, and provides a voice for practitioners reaching over 100 members. In response to growing demand, it has now gone global, bringing different perspectives, expertise and resources to make core activities such as original research, trainings, workshops, and knowledge sharing more impactful than ever. As a result, organizations are able to build their security risk management on an even stronger foundation to keep more aid workers safe and enable sustainable access to communities in need. With a vision to see the work of the whole third sector done more effectively by supporting NGOs around the world, we are the Global Interagency Security Forum.